Hey guys, welcome to another Jafo Paints. We're working with Massive Darkness, and this time we're doing a Greater Roaming Monster. Let's flip it over and see what we got. We've got the Cocatrix. Here is this beautiful little chocobo-looking demon bird. Most Cocatrix will stone you when you attack, and this one is none the difference. As far as the game stats, if it can get some of those special symbols, it stops the hero's activation. So let's take a look at the paints that we're using today. These, as always, may change because, Jafo pretends like he knows what he's doing, and then he just kind of thinks what he's doing after the fact. We're going to use a base of Rakarth Flesh. The intended purpose will be on most of the snake-like tail. We've got some mouth assets of Pink Horror and Averland Sunset. We have Ushabti Bone, and I forget where I'm going to put that. And don't worry, I'll tell you where I'm going to put it. We also have some Flayed One Flesh. It's another similar toned color. We have some Squid Orange we're going to use for some of his feathers. We have our ever-loving Mephiston Red we're going to use for his eyeballs, as well as some of the top cresting feathers. I forgot to grab it. We're going to use some Death Guard Green, and that's going to cover some the much larger feathers on there. As always, we've got our Dawnstone out to base our material. And our intended shades today are Reichland Flesh Shade, a Chthonian Camo Shade, and of course the ever-popular Null Noil. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to start with some Rakarth Flesh. I'm going to go prep that, and I'll be right back to show you what we're doing with it. Alright, so we're starting with Rakarth Flesh. I do have this prepped on my wet palette here. And today we're going to be using a combination of, as I'm dropping brushes everywhere, we're going to be using a combination of Citadel's medium base brush and small layer brush. The layer brush, of course, is so that we can get into those tight itty-bitty corners. And the medium base brush is because I'm sick of doing things multiple times for this. So, with our medium base brush, of course, we always prime in Mechanicus Standard Gray. And that just kind of helps bring it out a little bit better. We're going to do all of this lizard-like tail in our Rakarth Flesh. Being careful, if you can, to not get all of the feathers, because we're going to do that in a different color. We're going to do that more in a bone-colored, to give it that light look. So yeah, that's what we're going to do this. And we're also going to do, right here, the upper part of his thighs. On both legs, of course. And if you can get in under there, and you're going to want to use your tiny, tiny brush for that one, I'm going to get right in there and do the forearms of both arms here. If you can see it, it's really hard for me to see and paint at the same time, but you want to painting it right there. So I'm going to clean that all up, and I'll show you what we got in a minute. Okay, there we go. We now have our Rakarth Flesh applied. As you can see, we did it all over the lizard-like tail, into the meaty bones there, and of course, as I'm filming and showing, I realized I missed a finger. We're doing the finger underneath here, and there. We're going to leave the nails done. We'll come up with a better color for the nails. So the next one that we've got for you is we're going to do some Flayed One Flesh, and we're going to use that on the feathers on his drumstick, as it were, since he is sort of a chicken, and the little cartilage down here. So we're going to bring it down into here. We're also going to do the lower feathers there, as you can see. We're also going to do the feathers up here into the second, larger feather. I'm going to do all of this wing here. And I think that's going to be, well, no. Let's see. Well, we got all of these we're going to do, and of course that'll be the same on this side. And if you go over a little bit on your Rakarth, don't worry, you're going to cover that up with Flayed One. yeah, and I'll show you what we got after we're done. I'll be right back. All right, there we go. We now have our Rakarth flesh all over the I guess the fleshy, scaly, lizardy parts. We did it here, all over the lizard tail, as well as the exposed meaty bones there, and as well as his fingers. You do see some other paint on here that I did, and I made a mistake, and we're going to go over that with a different color. By the way, if you don't have it, please get some Gore Flesh, if you're following along at home, that is, because we are going to change what I did here into Gore Flesh. However, right now we are on to Flayed One Flesh, and we are going to do all of the feathers that are on his body. So we're going to doing all the way down here, where we might have already spilled into the Rakarth. All of the lower body here, as well as, of course, all of the body there, all the way out to about here. And you'll kind of see where the larger feathers kind of start to create. All the way up into the neck, and that's what we want to get rid of. And this will also go up into the first. No, I'll don't worry. I'll tell you what I did, but I will clean this all up. We're going to do the majority of the body in Rakarth flesh, or Flayed One Flesh, and I will show you what it looks like in a second. All right, there we go. We have now done our Flayed One Flesh. And like I said, we did that with all of the body. For the moment, as you're watching, ignore this part right here, because we're about to go over that in a new color. I also did the lower feathery meat down here on both sides, all the way around. We did all the way underneath. So if you're following along, and minus the skip on the mistakes that I made, your miniature should look something similar to this. We're now going to move to our Gore Flesh, which is a much more yellowy color. And that we're going to do on the first parts of feathers, and we're going to go all the way up to like this first feather line right here, the first set of big feathers. And then we want to use the back half here. We're going to do green. On the on his crest, there's a couple of smaller feathers you're going to want to pick out. And we'll color all of these little ones in that color. Also make sure you do like the first row of feathers on the bottom side. If you can see, if I can bring it into here. On the underneath, you want to get in like right up to there. Do that first line of feathers like so. So I'm going to clean that all up, and I'll be right back and show you what that looks like. There we go. We now have our Gore Flesh applied, and we now have a kind of a yellowish looking hue on the beginning of the wings. The next color we're going to switch to is Death Guard Green, and this is another one we're going to be switching between our medium and our small layer brush. We're going to be doing this on all of the big feathers on his hands, or on his wings, and then also the ones on his crest here, as well as the crest on his head. So I'm going to clean that all up, and I'll be right back and show you what that looks like. Alright, there we go. We now have our Death Guard Green attached or applied to our miniature. It's really starting to come together and really starting to look like something different. I think I actually kind of like this miniature because it's just got a much different look to everything else that we've painted on this series so far. So the next thing we're going to do is Squid Orange. And for this, as I drop the model, of course, we are going to paint all of the feathers on the back of the head. We don't want to get the plumage up here, so we're going to change that and do that in a red. But we want to get all of the rest of his neck feathers in this orange. So we're just going to do that. I'll clean this all up, and I'll be right back and show you what that looks like. Alright, there we go. We now have our Squid Orange applied, and that just gives that just another definition of color, and it's starting to look awesome. We're going to now switch to our Mephiston Red. For the Mephiston Red, we're going to do all of the rest of the hair or feathers on here. And we want to just kind of streak it just a little bit in. And we'll take some Endora Yellow and shade that together, and it'll blend real well. So we're looking to do all of the top of the head here. Wherever you feel the edge of the headline, you know, where the feathers end and the like actual flesh of beaky head starts. Yes, that's a technical term, guys. Beaky head. So we're going to do that. We're also going to do this weird little turkey gobbler neck thing down here. And finally, we're going to do his eyeballs. So I'm going to clean that all up. I will show you what that looks like shortly. There we go. We now have the Mephiston Red. The next color we're going to move to is Ushabti Bone. And that's kind of going to be the in-between color between the Ungor and the Flayed One Flesh. It's going to be more of, well, of a bone-ish color. We're going to use that to do all of his face up to the extra beak here, or the stone-like beak, and we're going to do that in a gray, I think. And then we're also going to do down here on his feet. Be right back to show you what that looks like. All right, there we go. We've got the Ushabti Bone painted upon his face and into his feet. There's only a couple of colors left to do. And here's some quick little one-off colors. We're going to take some Pink Horror. Probably been wondering what we're going to do with that. And we're going to just do just this little flap here on the inside. On both sides. That little, I don't know, tendon in his mouth. That's it there. We're going to take Averlin Sunset next. And that's going to paint his tongue and the back of his mouth. So there we go. Now I think I'm going to make the that pink go underneath the tongue right there. It's going to be the muscle that holds up that tongue, so we'll quick do that. So we got that right there. And don't worry if you make a little mistakes here and there. Just clean your brush, get some fresh paint of whatever color you went over the wrong way and fix it. So we'll make the pink kind of stand out. We'll put that Averlin Sunset on underneath, or over the top I should say. Make sure that that covers everything. So we got that. And that's going to be pretty much it. The last thing we're going to do, if you see, we still got one gray spot left on there. And that we're going to use a dark Ashen gray. I'll quick grab that and put that on my palette. And then all that's left, if you guys want to follow along, is to shade and do the basing. So, I will show you real quick what we're going to do with this Ashen gray. We're going to do it across his nose here, or the almost metallic style of his beak. Bring that up. I'm also going to use it on all of his talons. So I left the two talons here that he has, kind of the little fingers, and then all of his talons on the ground. So I will clean all of this up and show you what it's going to look like before we get to shading. Okay, with that, outside of basing, we have a fully painted Cocatrix model. Now, of course, you can always stop here, but that's not our way, is it? So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to move on to a shade, and the first shade we're going to use is a Reikland Flesh shade. That's that kind of reddish brown, and we're going to put that all over the main body, and the yellowish feathers. So we just want to do the white feathers and the yellow feathers in this color. So I'll clean that all up. I will be right back and show you what that looks like. Alright, with our first shade applied, it's time to go to the next one. And the next one we're going to use is a Chthonian Camo shade, which is a nice green shade. And you can guess where that one's going to go. We're going to put that all over those Death Guard green wings that we created. And we'll do the same exact thing that we just did with all of the Reikland Flesh shade. We'll do it all over these wings. By the way, as you can see, I did put it down onto the feet and the, I don't know, the whatever kind of thing the chicken has. It's right there, those like lesser leg things. I don't know what kind of meaty, talony things those are. But that's what we got. I have no idea. I am not a chicken expert. I am a painter of sorts. So I will do all of this and I'll be right back. There we go. We've got the Chthonian Camo shade added, and that has just added a lot of depth to our miniature. You do want to make sure, no matter how heavy or light you put it on, that you want to watch where it's pooling, because you don't want it to pool too badly. So always, if you need to, just grab a dry, clean brush, and you can use that to pull some of the ink that's pooling in places you don't want it. So we want good even coverage, but we don't want it to pool in places we don't need it. The next one we're going to use is Nuln Oil. That, of course, is our dark black shade. Normally we use this a lot for the metals. This time we're going to use it to change up the color of this Rakarth flesh a little bit. And you want to be not super dark with it. You just want to make sure you control where it is and where it goes. Cover up the whole tail, all the lizard flesh of it. And there you go. I will clean that all up. I will show you what it looks like shortly. Alright, there we go. We've got our Nuln Oil applied, and that's really darkened up that tail. Only thing left to do is we're going to take some Endora Yellow. I know I didn't announce it at the beginning of the video, and you guys should know by now I always find things I don't like and I change it. But we're going to use that to do all of the orange and red feathers, and we're just going to help blend those two together a little bit better. So you want to do all of the orange and all of the red on him. And while you're at it, if you want, you can do his little turkey neck. I don't know what the heck that's called on a rooster. But so, and just like before, make sure you've got good control of the ink on here, as you don't want it to pool in weird spots. So we'll just do all of that. And that's it. Once this is all dry, then it's time to do everybody's favorite step, highlighting. So there we go. That kind of just gives it almost a glossy look to it. So the first one I think I'm going to do and highlight, we're going to go back through with our Death Guard green. I just want to touch the tips. I want to catch the tips of our feathers. See if I can make sure I get that on camera so I can both see it and you guys can see it. I just want to take a little bit of that Death Guard green. I just want to go down the one side of the feather. Brighten it up just a little bit. It's a very subtle highlight. So I'm going to just go through and highlight that, and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. And there we go. It's just got a very subtle highlight with that Death Guard green. As you can see, for the most part, we kind of went up just one side, leaving the dark on the inside, and I did not highlight underneath, as I was leaving all of the shadow down there. So you were probably wondering the brush that I've got in my hand, and that is a small dry brush. Let's get yourself some tissue. It's the small dry brush by Citadel, and we're going to take that Gore Flesh that we had. We're going to get some on our brush. We want to get most of it off. And then we're going to do dry brushing. We want to go against the grain. Just want to dry brush some of this on. We want to still keep a bunch of that coloring in there, but we want to get some of that, you know, bird feather look back so that it's not so inky. I know it's probably not the technical term or even just a good term, but we're going to dry brush here. I just want you guys to see what that looks like as we go through. And this will kind of pick up all the high spots, but still leave that ink down below. I'm going to clean that off. We're going to come back and we're going to do that again with our Flayed One Flesh. I believe that's the color we used. Yes, it is. Flayed One Flesh. And we're going to do that across the body. And that'll help remove a lot of that ink look to it. And that's that. I will be right back. Alright, there we go. We've reapplied our dry brush. I did it like 2, maybe 3 times with our Flayed One Flesh. And that brought a lot of that whitish yellow color back up. I also went ahead right away and I kind of dry brushed the tail up, which left some of the inking, but brought a lot more of that skin in. What we're now going to do with that Rackhearth Flesh, so we're just going to go in where these muscles are real quick. And just like we would highlight any other muscles like we've done with Bjorn, and every other one of our heroes that we've done. Just want to highlight the high spots and leave the low spots. And once we've got that done, all that's left to do is do the base, and we are done with yet another model. Of course, you always want to take a look at your model, make sure nothing is kind of out of the ordinary that you don't like. Case in point, I don't like how thin it is on his bottom jaw here of his beak, or head, or whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to go ahead and tidy that up. Now I'm going to do the base, and that's all I got. I will be back with a finished base and a finished model to show you what it looks like. Be right back. There you go, guys. We have finished our Cocatrix, however you want to pronounce it. It was an interesting model. There are some things I wish I would have done beforehand. Normally I haven't had to prep any of these models, but there is some really bad flashing mold line right here, and it runs all up the tail. I wish I would have taken the time to look and prep this. Also, on his feathers, there's some flashing on the feathers that I would have preferred to get off, and I may still do that. And if you're curious on what to do, get yourself a hobby knife, and you just go through and kind of clean that up, so that if this is your first foray into miniatures painting, your miniatures will look a little bit better, and this guy will look even awesomer on the table. Yes, that's a word for me, awesomer. But it's one of those things. It's all about presentation and making things look the best they can. Now, this was one way that you could paint your miniature. There are many other ways you can do it. This is what I thought was kind of a close representation of what is shown on the card. And from that, there we go. This has been another Jafo Paints video, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks. Bye.